Too sophisticated. Okay, we can start our meeting. We'll open it up. We're all here. Is there any oral communications?
None.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 1, approval of the minutes.
Oh, go ahead. Motion to approve? Oh, my.
Sorry, that was me.
Sorry. Oh.
Can I second this?
Yes.
Oh, thanks.
Then I'm going to open the voting. Okay, it's approved 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 2 is welcome new trustee Giselle. Welcome to the Board of Trustees. Can you just say your last name for us?
Luevanos.
Okay, thank you, Luevanos. I guess we can introduce ourselves. I think you've had a chance to speak to a few of us, but if we could just introduce ourselves and maybe why we decided to join the Library Board of Trustees, and then we'll end with you. Maribel, would you like to start?
Hi, Giselle. My name is Maribel. I am finishing up my second year, or starting my second year, I think. And I joined, so I grew up just down the street from the library. I went to Central Elementary School, and so it's always been close to my heart. And then when they had the East Valley branch, I lived on that side of town. And so the library's always been near and dear to my heart. And so I just thought I also did a lot of community work before working at Cal State San Marcos. And so I think those two really complemented each other.
Hi, yeah, I'm John Schwab. When I joined the board, this is the beginning of my third term, so it's a little over 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. I was the second youngest person on the board, and obviously now I'm the oldest. Why I joined the board? There was a lot of tumult going on at that time with LS&S had just taken over the operation of the library from previously being an in-house thing in the city. And I figured with my contracts experience that I would be able to keep them straight. And that turned out to be totally unnecessary. But I found other things to do here and having fun.
Hi, Giselle. I had a chance to talk to you already individually, but again, my name is Virginia, and doing community service is something I'm very passionate about. And in 2020, or prior to 2020, I was working for the San Diego Blood Bank for 7 years, but then they asked me to go to their for-profit company, and the agreement there was that I would be able to do nonprofit work so that I could continue to serve the community. And then there was an opening on the Library Board of Trustees, and I think John had had someone put a call out to the community for Latino representation, so I applied, and here I am.
Francis, we met earlier too, but I live in the neighborhood with 2 kids and wife, and within walking distance of the library, so we've been visiting it their entire lives, and we see it as a special space, a community center space, and I wanted to see that when I joined the board, continue to see it. It was already happening. I think one of the reasons I also wanted to join was I just wanted to see as many people as possible within the Escondido community enjoy the library for whatever they want to pull out of it, because I think you can get so much out of it for a variety of different reasons. So that's why I'm a part of it. And thank you for joining too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all so much for the warm welcome. I'm excited and honored to join you all here with the board. And again, have connected with some of you, and just briefly the background and interests that I bring is I do have 3 kids, 6, 4, and 3. My oldest just graduated kindergarten, so there's a special passion with the library related to children's services, parent education programs, kindergarten readiness, and early literacy. And my son's favorite place is the library, so that's probably the reason I visited so much over the last year, and so sparked my interest in joining. My professional full-time job is as Senior Director of Communications and Marketing for Cal State San Marcos, and so I've been 12 years in public higher ed. I was at San Diego State for 10 years prior, and so I, just being in higher ed and kind of public education side of things, I've told a few people that working with college students, it's talking and teaching them a lot about civic engagement, civic service, involvement. So I feel like it was my time to contribute as well. So very, very excited to join you all. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Welcome. And you've already had a chance to meet with Robert and Reno individually, right? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, Building Forward Library Infrastructure Grant. And I believe Ed is going to present on this one.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ed Vasquez, Project Manager for the Library Infrastructure Innovation Project. I'm basically here to answer any questions you may have from our walkthrough. I don't know if we have any questions. I didn't know we were giving an update today other than the walkthrough, but I can surely answer any questions you may have.
You kind of touched on this in the walkthrough, but for the unfunded items, do you think we should tentatively plan to have a list or meeting with the other community members to discuss what can be funded, like mid-August?
Yes, that would probably work mid-August.
And then you would need an answer from the community members to purchase by early September?
Yes.
And then last question, then I'll pass it over to John. Reno, since when we were doing the walkthrough, I saw the employee space is getting renovated. Did you have new furniture in the wish list for the employee break room?
So that's a great question. One of the reasons we need to postpone just a little bit is because I need to work with Ed and the architects to make sure that any changes structurally to the building will accommodate the correct number of staff spaces. Because we did budget in for staff on that first floor, right behind the former service desk, which is where we saw that space. But for the second floor, we did not anticipate touching the staff areas, so we did not anticipate new furniture for those staff areas. The good thing about that is that staff furniture tends to be far less expensive than public-facing furniture, so I'm not too worried about the cost overall increasing significantly for the additional staff desks, essentially. We won't need new chairs, those are all still pretty new, so it's really more about desks and potentially storage, which a lot of those are built in. But we will need to work with Ed and the furniture company, GM, and the architectural firm to make sure that anything we propose will actually fit and have connections. And so that's where we're a little bit behind, given the fact that we have a lot more space and a lot more budget to work with.
Okay, great. So I'll check in with you at the end of this month to see if we're still on target to meet in mid-August, and then I'll work on getting everyone together on a set date.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, John.
On that same subject, would it make sense to at least put down a tentative date in August right now? And that we could change that at a later date if it becomes necessary?
Sure. I'm okay with that.
Okay, I'll reach out to Reno and Robert to schedule that soon.
Sure.
I'm not sure that you have have you ever seen the layout? Okay. Why don't I give you these and make copies of them at your leisure. Worst case, we'll get him back to you at the next meeting. That's the 2-floor layouts, the original of the bottom floor, and then the second floor that we went through at the FF&E meeting. No, I thought what we covered today was pretty thorough. I'm amazed that the whole place didn't flood out with a 2-inch copper pipe nesting with a galvanized steel duct.
Yes.
That's absolutely amazing that the place wasn't flooded out at some point a long time ago.
We're very fortunate it didn't happen before, and we're fortunate that we caught it now and can fix it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought today went well, and it's you guys are approaching it the right way, and we'll just wait and see what happens. There'll be some more surprises, I'm sure. You haven't taken off the roof yet.
No. That's a big one. So the roof is scheduled over the next month. They're going to start removal of the tiles. So it's when we'll be able to see more on the roof. We're hoping for the best because there were some roof repairs that were done over the last, I would say, 10 years, 10 to 12 years. So it's a questionable item, right? I can't say for sure, and I can't say that we're not. So we just have to wait to open that up.
Yeah, you might run into some issues with the wood underneath.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I don't have anything else to add on that.
I'll just jump in quickly and reiterate too, just thank you for the walkthrough. It was very comprehensive. It's obvious everyone's paying close attention to all the details. I was going to ask about the roof. You kind of just answered it, but like, what would the public expect from just like an outside perspective if you're walking by? Will there be cranes? How do you get those tiles off the roof? Are you going to put the same tiles back on the roof?
So it will not be the same tiles. The roof replacement that we were able to budget into the project is a complete roof replacement. So complete roof all the way down to the plywood, new underlayment, new paper, new tiles all the way through. They were able to source a Spanish type tile like the one that we have now, just updated, being cool roof is what they call it. So it has that built into it. It helps actually the building be cooler than it is now with the updated materials that are used. But it's going to look pretty similar to now, except you probably notice the brightness because it'll be the new, right now, faded, brand new red, so brick red in a sense. So, yeah. But everything will be taken down with lifts. They'll use lifts to go up and start removing portions of the tile at a time. My understanding is they're not going to do the entire roof all at once. They're going to do it in portions or sections just because in case we have weather that we don't know about, it's a hard roof to actually re-roof because of the slope and how big it is. So they really have to be careful with that process on that roof.
Nice. Thank you.
I have a question more on the temporary location. Well, two actually. Reno, do you know if it would be possible on Google to update to the temporary location? Because it still shows Kalmia, and I don't know, I think when people look up the library, I think there's a way in Google to put like temporary, a new address and hours. And then the second question is, at the children's section at the mall, I was there a couple weeks ago, and it may have been, I think, on the main library side, but I didn't see any hours or days posted. So I think that would be helpful to have in the children's window.
For the first question, for the first question, we are aware that the Google situation isn't ideal. The problem with it is I can either I can close the library rather than temporarily close it, which is where it's at right now, which would completely, essentially erase it from Google, at least is how it is. The alternative, which is what we went with, is to create a Escondido Public Library North County Mall. We didn't call it a branch, but it's just space, North County Mall. And what we've been directing staff, and we've been trying to push it more on social media, is that if you Google or Google Map Escondido Library Mall, that'll get you the correct location. Okay. But we're still working on trying to not completely destroy the old or main library brand, like Google Space, because then we'll have to redo it when we come back. But Google doesn't really have a good option for turning something off without turning off a lot of things. So
Okay.
that was the compromise. The best we're doing right now for the public is to inform them that Google Escondido Public Library Mall or Escondido Library Mall, and that will get you the correct location with correct hours.
Okay.
That's the main thing. So if you know anybody that wants to go to the mall, that's the best option, Escondido Library Mall. Those 3 keywords will get you the correct spot. And we're going to keep working with Google to see if we can find another workaround, because we realize that it is confusing. We also know that a lot of people just look at Google first. For the second one, we did add hours on the general library after some requests. There was less of an obvious spot on the children's side, but I think I can probably add something to one of the pillars. We just have to confirm with the mall management, because it's an outward-facing sign. I just to make sure that it meets their standards for that one too.
Okay. Thank you.
I also wanted to reiterate thanks for the tour. That was very helpful. And just so that it's here and brought up at our meeting, thank you so much for mentioning in there that you were already in contact, Ed, with Parker from CityCom. So just kind of want to reiterate that note of highly recommending the photos for before and after, even the potential for B-roll to be kind of taken, just some pans. I would recommend that for when the roof construction happens. I think some of that is going to could be fun, interesting content for social media, keep it top of mind for the community and the public, and maybe further exploring like the time-lapse capabilities or possibilities as well. So thank you.
Sure. Will do.
No more questions? Okay, thank you, Ed. We'll move on to item number 4, library mural project.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Very exciting to do the walkthrough today. It was there was more done than the last time I did the walkthrough, which was previous Monday. And as Joe and Ed had talked about, once we get the framing done, it'll be nice to be able to get in there again and take another tour. So we'll work on continuing that so you can kind of see that progress as we continue to move forward. So that all being said, I'd like to touch base on the library mural. The last time I was up here and had this conversation that we put all of our murals, for the most part, on hold because of the contractor's license that was required by the state of California for anything to go up onto a public building. I have some really positive news, and that news is that Senate Bill 456, which was making its way through the California State Senate, has passed through the California State Senate. That bill then went over to the State Assembly, and it just this week has passed out of the Business Professions Committee. It is looking to go into the Assembly, the full Assembly itself, for a full vote. We are potentially projecting that that bill will pass, with the exception for muralists not to have a contractor's license, be signed into law, and potentially be available as early as, and again, this is as early as, doesn't mean it's going to happen, as early as January 1st of 2026, which is great. However, in the meantime, I have even better news. The muralist that was looking at painting the mural on the library on the corner of Calmia and 2nd is looking to actually do that project prior to the start of the opening of the library, so before spring of 2026 when the construction is completed. He has been able to identify a licensed muralist that will be able to support him. So we are looking at the construction timeline for us to be able to see when we can plug that process in. It will take anywhere from 8 to about 10 weeks, pending weather and any other challenges that we encounter. The biggest concern at this point would be the roofing repair portion of that particular project. Again, we'll be working with Ed as well as the contractor to identify a more specific time for them to be able to come in and to start and complete that mural. So all good news on all those fronts, and I wanted to make sure that you had that information. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Was a final design selected?
Yes. And it should have been the one that you have seen, but I will make sure that it gets sent over to you.
Okay.
Just to verify what it is. And I apologize, trustee, that you're brand new and you've not probably seen this design at all. And it didn't occur to me until like I'm sitting there and like, oh, new trustee. So I'll make sure that we send that out to everybody.
Okay.
I believe
think
it was the one with the stars.
Oh, good. Okay.
With the campfire kind of in the background.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, Robert, thanks for all your work on this, because this, only in California, okay? I mean, the bureaucracy that you've had to wade through to get this going is just, well, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, statistics report, presented by Reno.
That is me. So, you got the stats. No changes here. The main change we're going to see likely will be in June when we actually start receiving stats for the mall locations. The stats for this month, it's still March, April, and May. You can see the dip during the month, the transitional month of May. I'll be honest, I think we did better than I expected, given the fact that we were shorter days out of a new location, the Pioneer Room, as well as our programs being a fraction of what we normally do. Trying to think what else I should mention. Pioneer Room, you can see the difference. We went from 200 on average in March up to nearly 7,000 in attendance during May. Which is a reminder that, every day between 500 to 1,000 people visit the library, depending on the day and the event. And so that's reflected in that, as well as the wireless sessions. Website visits to stayed about the same. We also saw hits to our volunteers. Obviously, the library is closed. We cannot have active volunteers. So the numbers you mostly see there are reflective of our literacy volunteer tutors and also the Friends of the Library Board and members who help that transition, because they continue to volunteer as part of their actions as the board. We are looking forward to June's data. I have, of course, looked at June's data. Currently, it is still too early to see any trends as compared to where we were before. But overall, I've been very positively impressed with both the visits and the circulation at the mall branches, or location, I should say. With at least visits either matching or on some days exceeding our average visits at the main library we just visited this afternoon. So even with the challenges of communication, getting people to know that we have moved, we are still open, we are at the mall, where we are at the mall, where to park, all those challenges, we are still seeing a pretty close attendance level. I'm still working on the data, and we'll need more time to really say who is attending and who is registering the new cards, whether it's any different demographics, either neighborhood or where they live or work. But overall, we have been anecdotally very happy with both the visits, the new card registrations, and the circulation at the mall locations. Overall, both staff and especially patron feedback has been very positive with the locations. So I am making sure going forward that we are tracking the correct stats so we can compare them from mall to main library, so we have a realistic understanding of the impact, both on circulation, visits, and program attendance. Those are the three main kind of metrics we're going to be looking at when comparing. And of course, anything else is still going to be visible in data. It's just that digital circulation, we haven't really seen much change with the transition, which makes sense. They are not tethered to the location. Same with website views, and all those online type of stats have essentially stayed the same from where we've been. Any questions or anything you'd like me to look out for going forward?
I think I'm wondering if we should add, at least temporarily, the stats on the changes with Hoopla, because we want to review that monthly. And so also I'm wondering, like, if you've been seeing the trends with that and how that's been going.
Excellent question on the Hoopla. I did take a look again. Essentially, there hasn't been much change. We have been hitting about the same number of downloads, which is essentially tied to how much money we offer. So if we offer it, it will be downloaded. And so we're about capped on that. As far as when the downloads are blocked, that still varies. Earlier in the month is still trending towards very early in the morning. We've gotten much better than 12 a.m. or 12:01. We're now closer to like 7, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., even on the earliest days. And that trends to, by the second week of the month, we're now closer to the downloads being capped mid to late afternoon. And then closer to the end, essentially, there's no caps. So we still have people trending to download at the very beginning of the month, because that's what they have been trained to do with the initial hooplaying. You want to get those downloads, so you go in right away at the start of the month, and you have all your downloads fresh, and everybody has those downloads fresh. So there's a lot more people at the start to try to get access to materials. We have, in next month's presentation, I'll be presenting the collection budget for your review and comment. The tentative draft increases the Google budget just a little bit, with the majority of cost savings from cancellation of a couple of databases that weren't being used, going more towards Overdrive, Libby, and also being distributed among our print collections that are still popular. For example, children's is still getting funding in our adult collection fiction. And you'll see the Hoopla budget went up just a little bit, so we're trying to make it so that way there is no day of the month where you have to get that message that says you hit the cap. That is our goal, at least for next year. If we can't get that, then we'll have to think more seriously about whether we need to cut back the downloads again, or as part of a negotiation for more funding, set aside a certain amount for Hoopla and Overdrive from that. The reality is we know that Hoopla, there is no cap on how much Hoopla can be spent. We have to set that, and we have to be real with the patrons as far as what does that mean and what impact that has, which is you'll get a limited number of downloads, and really treat Hoopla as kind of the alternative when you can't get it on Overdrive.
Can you remind me for Libby Overdrive, are we using any federal dollars to fund that? Just because with how the federal funding situation is kind of up in the air.
That's a tricky question to answer. We do receive some support through our library cooperative we are a part of, the Sarah Cooperative. So Sarah receives state funding to help offset the cost of buying additional shared ebooks and e-audiobooks for the consortium. Some of those funds might have been supervised by staff that were federally funded through grants. At this point, there doesn't seem to be any direct impact in our ability to continue to use resources from Sarah and that support. What might be impacted will be funding loss that hits Link Plus, which was also funded by a grant out of Imperial County. The Sarah Administrative Council, which I'm a part of as a director, will be meeting at the end of this month to see whether we can offset the loss of those funds with increases to our membership dues. What does that mean for us? It means we will probably have to either eat into our operating funds or our collection funds to maintain a Link Plus. If that's untenable, we might have to reach out to the trustees or other support groups for additional funding to help support services like Link Plus or in the case of Plus, something like that. Currently, I don't anticipate that being an issue, at least in the next 2 fiscal years. Beyond that is when the consortium's ability to absorb the cost will dissipate, and more of that cost will be put on the member libraries. So it's a little bit too early to say exactly what will we have to cut. Currently, I'm not planning on anything as far as Link Plus is concerned, because it remains too popular and a good alternative for those that can't get items at the library. But just know that that'll be coming up probably in my next month's update. I'll have a better idea of how the Sarah Cooperative Executive Council chose to vote, and I'll have a better idea of the cost and impact. Just know that that is another potential issue with that federal funding. It's not necessarily that we're losing direct funding, it's all the indirect funding that supports some of the other organizations we are a part of.
Thank you.
Okay, I know you don't track this, but have you heard anything from Friends on how well their bookstore is doing?
Don't have exact numbers, but anecdotally they've told me that they're doing very well. They especially have been very happy to see a lot more teenagers stopping by and buying books, which was enough for them to tell staff that was a surprise. I was also pleasantly surprised to hear that they did increase the price on some of their books, since apparently they're flying off the shelves and the market will allow for it, so now they're at the mall and everything else is far more expensive. But overall, I think it's very good. They do share with me more or less quarterly their revenues when they give me the minutes of their meetings. It's just that they're not always on time with the minutes. They usually are, but I can certainly get info and give a little brief update or ask them if they feel comfortable with sharing that.
Okay, thank you. The city went out of their way to make sure Friends had some place to continue their their endeavors, and I'm glad to see it's bearing fruit.
Yeah, I actually got to chat with the Friends quite a bit during the grand opening. And so they did express that they were doing well. They had a lot of younger folks coming in, and I think they've even moved around their hours, their volunteer hours, to try to capture the after school time. And I think that we're going to try to accommodate for summer school right now. And they even gave me a tour of their operations in the background. And so they were really grateful, and again, appreciative to Robert and Reno and the team for taking them into account and keeping them in the loop, because I think they had a little scare in the beginning that they would potentially not be able to operate there for a while.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, great. We'll move on to the library director's report.
All right. One thing I'll mention is that I'm testing out a new format for this month's report. You'll notice that we have skipped over the strategic plan section, and you'll see what I've done in just a moment. I have incorporated strategic plans into my monthly report, so that way it's a little bit more streamlined for all of us, since it seemed like there was a lot of repetition. But if you would like something or more data specific to the strategic plan, please feel free to let me know via email or give me a call. Overall, director's report, we're of course very excited of the library grand opening over at the mall location. We've included that in our newsletters that went out with the new information, and each newsletter has usually a little bit more info about how the mall is working. As I mentioned earlier, very positive feedback from patrons and staff. We're still settling in. As we all know with moves, it takes a while to unpack and find everything. But overall, each day is closer to getting us to full operations as I see it. We're working fine, and we are checking out. We have programs now. We have our children's programs, which I'll mention, and I've mentioned this to everybody that'll hear me. The mall has been very supportive and very receptive to our activities there. So they've helped promote the programs on their calendar. They've also mentioned that they're very happy to see that they have a full calendar of events now, because the library is there for them to offer those programs out on the floor. Very receptive to having us out on the floor, on that first floor, for our story times. We are back to over 100 participants at each of the story times. We've had some challenges with audio, but we're working that through, and the mall has been very open to letting us use storefronts that have enclosures for some of our more quiet events, and we're thinking of our meditation programs, our book clubs. The arts and crafts programs are doing great in the corner. I've heard that our teen and tween program have seen increases. So again, we're getting those demographics we don't normally get to the library here in downtown. It's much easier for them if they're at the mall to get to those programs. So we're seeing a nice increase in that demographic specifically for programming. So that's kind of the good news and update at the mall. Pioneer Room, we're very excited that the City Council accepted on our behalf a $5,000 Catalyst grant from the Society of American Archivists. This is something I've been encouraging from our full-time archivist, Ashley, to really look for grants that are impactful and will reach our community for what we need. So she successfully applied for this grant from the Society of American Archivists. It's called Latinos in Escondido Oral History. The goal, of course, is to preserve, record, and then share the oral histories of our Latino community here in Escondido. The $5,000 will probably go towards buying additional technology, so voice recorders and other equipment, editing software that our archive staff can then use, then upload to our already existing online archives. This, of course, is where we see our first connection to strategic goal, and this is kind of the format I'm recommending, which is these highlights. What strategic goals are they actually hitting? And this type of project in the Pioneer Room is really a cultural connector. It's, again, reminding people of the library as a cultural hub and community hub, where you want to come in of cousin, aunt, uncle, grandma has a story, stop by the library's Pioneer Room, to both learn about it and also share that story is the goal with this type of oral history project. I'll also mention that, it's not on here, but our archivist reminded me right before, that we will be co-sponsoring, well not sponsoring, we were co-awarded a spot at the San Diego airport with the History Museum to have 2 exhibits across, from what you told me, 14 display cases featuring items from our collections as well as Historical Society and Museums collections. And that'll be up for a year starting, I believe, in October. And I'll have more details in next month's update, but I thought that was really neat. You'll be able to, if you're going out of the airport, see items from our collections on the way out and also on your way in, highlighting more of our local history and the importance of collecting it. Literacy, some of you attended. We had our annual literacy celebration on May 28th. Again, if you haven't attended before, especially our newer members, I do encourage it. It happens once a year in May, and we highlight both what literacy does and also the accomplishments of select students. And it's always my favorite part to hear how going to the library, working with our tutors and our literacy staff changes people's lives. There's nothing less than that. It's just their lives are different from going to our literacy program, learning even basic English. It's just a great reminder of the impact that that has, and as a reminder of almost all of our literacy funding is grant funded by the state. Adult services, you can see here one of our book clubs pictured. A lot of our patrons, again, very much praising the convenience of the new location, and also express a lot of support for the fact that we do have some friends still at the library in the mall, and we have continued programs like our law library services twice a month still. More children's programs have happened, and you can kind of see here I took a photo of one of the days in the library. Story times resumed to much applaud, and if you stop by the mall in the morning, you'll hear them and see them in one of the corners on the first floor. Our summer reading challenge has begun, and we are in full swing. It began June 16th, and will continue through August. This year's theme is Color Our World. If anybody you know wants to read and get prizes, I encourage you to send them over to the summer reading page on the website to register. All ages are welcome and all ages get prizes. Oh yes, this was, as I was mentioning, the teen and tween programs. For tween program in particular, or book clubs, on average we were about 5 attendees, but the most recent club had 17, so it's almost almost a fourfold increase. So again, different demographics visiting the mall and using it differently, but still the library remains in demand in general, is my takeaway so far. Any questions, anything you'd like to know more about?
Thank you so much for sharing, and congratulations on all the programming. I had a couple questions. I wanted to follow up more, get more information on the oral history project. So congratulations, too, on the receipt of that grant. Can you share a little bit more information? Like, do we have a target goal for the number of participants to participate in that oral history project? It's going to be open from what date to what date? Just some of that information, if you can expand.
What I can do is forward the Board of Trustees the application. I might have included that when we first initially were looking to apply, but I didn't send the final accepted application. There is a target number of oral interviews, and my memory tells me it's either 20 or 50, but I don't hold me to that. It is one of those numbers, I'm fairly sure. The benefit of this is that while the reporting period is only for about a year, once we have the equipment in place and the procedures, which is the real goal of this grant, the project will continue beyond the grant. And we will then support it internally either through support of the Friends or operating funds if we need to replace equipment or get new tables, etc. So it's a longer term goal, but specifically for this grant, it's about a year and around 50 or so participants.
Thank you. And is there an age range? Does it have to be an adult, or is there?
There is no age range. However, I do believe that there is a preference for those in the community that have lived here for longer term or those skewing a little older, just so that we capture those stories before they sadly pass away, as is life. But that is where there is a priority of certain categories of individuals that were identified in the grant application. But the reality is, if they're willing to go through the process, and I believe there is an application for it, at least at the start, then we'd be willing to capture their information.
That's great. Thank you. And so that one will be one, too, that'll be interesting in how we market and how we make sure that everyone, knows that that's an opportunity to participate. And then my other question was, congratulations on the literacy celebration as well. For, the story that was kind of shared at that event, is it captured in a way that also has more legs, like living on the website, or was that just that individual was highlighted at the celebration, or how can others kind of learn some of these really success stories?
What I did last year was we included highlights of both the speakers and also other stories in our annual report section for literacy. I've also encouraged our literacy staff to share such anecdotes with our marketing coordinator. There is in certain stories, in certain situations, the learner might request that it be anonymized or not be included, even if it's an amazing story. As you can tell here, I have anonymized this person's story just because a lot of the impacts are very personal. A lot of it is either stories of immigrants fleeing oppression or fleeing countries that are no longer safe. And then also a lot of stories involving very personal family issues, either medical or dramatic life changes they might have gone through, which they might not want to share. So our literacy staff is very conscious of that, so they're very careful of what they share and when they share it. But I think we all realize that these stories are very key to demonstrating the value even though it's not necessarily monetary value, but intrinsic value in what literacy does for our community. And so that's why we've been increasing the visibility in our annual report and then focusing more on getting these out more regularly with the public with all that.
Thank you.
And Reno, kind of on that note, the recordings, is the target for those to be in English, or will there be abilities to capture Spanish language?
I suspect, and I don't remember 100% off the top of my head, but we should be able to take both English and Spanish. It's why we're also working with the History Center and Museum to expand our ability to speak Spanish. Some of it will also be kind of self-serve, where maybe a family member might help ask the questions in Spanish and it's recorded in Spanish. And we do have staff that we can translate that. The goal overall will be for recordings to be saved and archived and then shared, as well as transcripts of the oral histories. And typically, if you're not aware with oral histories, there's usually a set question that everybody gets asked, and then at the end there's oftentimes for anything else that was left out. I haven't worked closely enough with our archivist to say exactly what those questions will look like, but that is coming forth in the future, because depending on how that's set up, there's differences in how it might be presented.
Okay, thank you. That was going to be my secondary question, if there was going to be like a script or if it's an open format. I think this would be a very neat opportunity to get young bilingual adults really involved in the pioneer room in archiving. If we can maybe recruit volunteers to help guide those questions, or even in the transcription, I think that's it's a very special opportunity that can present itself.
I could be very good at. I've done similar projects with Spanish honor societies in high schools, and they could also be in this community. It's a lot easier because you have a lot more bilingual, either first generation students or family members. Whereas in other library systems, you might struggle to get that.
Yeah, so I think it'd be cool to maybe, if it would be possible, to do like a call for volunteers and do training and onboarding of like, this is how we want to do the scripting for those. So
Yeah, that's something
just a
that's
thought.
very trainable.
Yep. Thank you.
Reno, I like the updated format. So just wanted to say that. So thank you for the updates. Anyone else have any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. We can move on to item number 7, the trustee library use report. So this is a time for us to share our interactions with the library or a library and share that feedback with Reno. Would you like to start, Maribel?
Sure. After a pause of a couple months, I've started back on my genealogy search. And so that I've kind of hit a wall in one aspect, but I think I got my husband interested. Now he wants me to go down his family line, but I've got my dad's side to do first. Also, for personal family reasons, I was looking at Escondido Adult Schools bilingual program, and I was chatting with whoever had picked up the line, and I wonder if there would be some opportunity to collaborate with the Escondido Adult School, because I know funding, especially for English second language programming, is also up in the air. And I don't expect that to be within this temporary location, but seeing that we split off that and kind of have something that might look like a classroom now, I wonder if that presents itself an opportunity to work with Escondido Adult School to maybe have an instructor coming into the library, right? And obviously we'd have to work something out, seeing that they have their own funds to be able to have that opportunity at the library and get more folks in there. If that's something that sounds of interest to Reno and the board, I do have the contact information, and I can try to make that introduction.
Yeah, I think we would certainly appreciate getting contact. It might be that our staff already has some contact with them, but you never know. And so we're always looking for partners, especially if they want to work with us.
Perfect. I can pass that on.
So I was on vacation from the 28th of May through the 17th of June. I think it was on the 25th. I was over at Target at the mall, and I figured, no, we'll see what's going on with the library move. So I went over, and they were closed, of course, but someone was just leaving through one of the doors, and so I walked up to it, and Aspen Hill was there. Looked like she'd slept there for days. She just looked very tired, very, very tired. So I'm sure you guys put in a lot of hours, especially that weekend. And then I think came back for I guess that would be the soft opening on the 27th. Yeah. And because we left town the morning of the 28th. It was, it's certainly not like the existing library, but I found what I wanted. And so that always works. So, and since then I've been over there a couple of times, and my wife is spending all her money at the bookstore.
My daughter recommended a book to me called Burro Genius by Victor Villaseñor, who is an artist that grew up in Oceanside. And he talks a lot about growing up in northern San Diego County in like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And he's still on the same property that he was born on. And so it's really cool to just hear his perspective story, what it's like to grow up as a Hispanic person in Oceanside during that time. And after I read that book, and it talks a lot about his story and he overcame dyslexia and, like the school system that he went through. It was fascinating. And I think I liked it even more because it was local. And so I wanted to read all of his books. And I'm like, what is the chances that our library is going to have his other books? And I checked, and I was pleasantly surprised that we had the next one that I wanted to read called 13, which I have it on my nightstand right now, but my memory is not that great. And 13 Senses, and it was there. I was able to search on the database. It was in stock, and so I went the day before the library was going to close, was able to grab it, and I really appreciate the auto renewals because it's a big book. So, yeah, I was really happy that we had it, and so I'm glad I checked it out so it doesn't go on the forgotten about list, and hopefully we get to keep it around.
Let me see here. So I went to the Literary Services dinner in May. That was a special night. Thanks for inviting me. Just vulnerable, powerful, uplifting stories from the English as a Second Language group. Thank you to them if they listen to this ever for sharing their stories. Visited the mall location like many of us have. Incredible to see that come together. Family enjoyed the Friends of the Library bookshop as well. And I don't know if they checked anything out in the last visit or not, but they loved running around the different parts of the mall and the sections there. And then real quick, last night I applied for a library e-card at a library in Ohio because I'm trying to access their newspaper archives. And I noticed that I also have access to Hoopla through that. I don't know if I'll use the Hoopla just because of all the conversations we've had here over the last few months, but I thought that was cool and wanted to share that. That's all.
So I utilized Libby, thank you, and recently checked out an audiobook, Separated, and then an ebook, Eleanor Oliphant. So I'm looking forward to those. The Children's Discovery Museum right here in Escondido has one of those little libraries. My son did a summer camp a couple weeks ago, but I noticed it was completely empty. So we cleaned out some of our shelves of the stuff my kids are aging out of and filled that up with 25 books. So now it's staffed at that little library if anyone happens to go there to the museum.
Thank you, everyone. Meeting's adjourned.